Military log, November 17, 1943, 6:42, RAF Foulsham, England. The morning air is brittle, biting at exposed skin through the collar of a leather flight jacket, and the smell of aviation fuel and damp earth clings to the boots of men who have been awake since before the dawn. Lieutenant Robert Bob Carver pauses at the threshold of the briefing tent, his breath visible in clouds, eyes flicking to the rows of men hunched over maps, calculators, and hastily scrawled notes. He knows the German intelligence has called their aircraft fragile, a flying coffin, a term repeated in intercepted chatter, smirked at over maps of the Ruhr and Dresden, where thousands of tons of bombs will fall in the coming months. Carver's hands tremble slightly as he fingers the edge of the P-39 style flight log, but his mind is elsewhere, remembering the last mission over Schweinfurt, the firestorm of flak that tore through formations like a scythe, the deafening roar of B-17s burning in midair, their tail gunners screaming in the radios that sometimes sputtered between life and silence. He has broken protocol before, ignored the rigid schedule, stayed behind to comfort a young tail gunner whose wingman was shredded by anti-aircraft fire, and today, with another mission looming, he feels that same helpless anger clawing at him, a mixture of grief, fear, and defiance. The briefing begins, Colonel Harris's voice crisp over the wind, formation holds, 10 aircraft abreast, tight turn radius, keep altitude between 24,000 and 27,000 feet. Flak concentrations along Essen and Duisburg have increased. Intel estimates Luftwaffe sorties at 45 to 60 fighters, primarily Bf-109s and FW-190s. Bomber integrity is your shield, firepower is secondary but lethal. The men nod, understanding, yet apprehensive. Every detail is a potential difference between life and shredded steel. Outside, the B-17s sit like metallic leviathans, frost-covered wings glinting in the weak light, .50 caliber guns gleaming ominously from their positions along the dorsal, tail, and chin turrets. Engines roar to life with a mechanical growl that shakes the ground and rattles the windows of the barracks, a reminder that once airborne, escape is only possible through skill, luck, or sheer improbability. Carver climbs aboard the lead fortress, notes in his log the serial numbers of his crew, checks the Norden bomb sight for alignment, ensuring the gyroscope is calibrated to fractions of a degree, understanding that the difference between a city block and a factory chimney could be mere inches from 25,000 feet above. The navigator, a young Yale graduate named Simmons, murmurs coordinates under his breath, tracing flight paths over heavily industrialized northern Germany, while the bombardier double-checks charts of flak positions, counting AAA emplacements, calculating velocity vectors to avoid predicted shrapnel bursts. And then the formation takes off, staggered, heavy wheels clanging against concrete, propellers slicing through mist like giant knives. As they ascend, the horizon stretches, rivers and fields blurring beneath the B-17's metallic frames. The first crackle of enemy flak appears, distant, orange blossoms in the sky, and the German pilots, smirking moments ago, suddenly find themselves dodging dozens of heavily armed, aluminum monsters moving in tight combat boxes. Carver's radio bursts with the chatter of gunners, 9 o'clock, FW-190 diving. Tail hit, minor fire, continuing mission. Mid-upper gunner down, repeat, mid-upper down. Each voice is a testament to terror and bravery intertwined, each transmission a pulse in the heartbeat of the mission. The bomb site operator sweats, calculating trajectory against wind speed, air density, and target altitude, aware that a miscalculation by even a fraction of a degree could mean the difference between crippling a synthetic oil plant and obliterating a civilian district. Morality and strategy intersecting violently at 26,000 feet. Below, the Ruhr spreads like a metallic jungle, smokestacks punctuating the sky, rails and highways weaving intricate patterns, factories bristling with anti-aircraft defenses. The Germans, who once laughed at the B-17s, now find their fighters outmatched in terms of endurance. The heavy armor that covers fuel tanks, engines, and critical controls frustrates even the most determined Mi-109 pilots. Bombs away, a synchronized drop, the fortress formation shivering as 2,000-pounders plunge earthward with the hiss of compressed air and detonating fuses, and the destruction begins. Carver glances across the fuselage to his co-pilot, eyes meeting with unspoken understanding. both aware that every flak burst is a dance with death. The plane shudders violently, a near miss ripping the aluminum skin with a shriek, sending shards into the radio compartment. Crew members fire at incoming fighters, tracers streaking across the sky, a deadly ballet of fire and steel. Lieutenant Carver grips the control yoke tighter, the words of his late friend echoing, "They may call us a coffin, but we bring the storm." And in that moment, the B-17 transforms from an object of scorn to an unstoppable instrument of strategic terror, dominating skies once thought safe for Luftwaffe pilots. The squadron emerges from the flak, battered, smoke curling from a wing, one engine gone but still airborne, forming a makeshift defensive perimeter that turns the tables on pursuing fighters. Carver's heart pounds as he logs each hit, each evasive maneuver, a litany of survival and courage that will be read decades later as testament to the resilience of men and machine intertwined. They cross back over the North Sea, engines throttled, fuel low, flak damage extensive, but every man aboard has survived what should have been impossible, the Germans' laughter now echoing hollowly against the roar of American resolve. Upon landing, the exhausted crew disembarks, eyes haunted, bodies trembling, yet beneath the horror lies an undeniable truth: the flying coffin was no longer an insult, but a symbol, a testament to endurance, firepower, and a nation unwilling to concede the skies. Lieutenant Carver finally allows himself a moment, standing alone by the tarmac, the morning mist curling around him, whispering names of fallen friends, promising vengeance not through rage but through unyielding persistence in the steel and gunfire of the skies. The morning fades into a gray, sunless haze, the kind of sky that seems to hold its breath, and as Lieutenant Carver walks back toward the makeshift mess hall, the chatter of ground crews repairing flak-dented wings fills the air, a low hum of determination against exhaustion, the smell of hydraulic fluid mixing with burnt oil and concrete dust. He watches as Sergeant Mills, a wiry engineer with grease-smeared hands, hammers rivets into a wing panel that barely survived the last mission, muttering about torque measurements and stress tolerances, a silent ode to the mechanical marvels that allow men to defy gravity and death simultaneously. Carver thinks of the tail gunner, young Henderson, who had taken 3 tracer rounds through his turret but had still managed to keep a Messerschmitt off the formation's flank, his hands trembling as he worked the .50 cal, and he wonders how anyone survives the juxtaposition of fear and duty so utterly. Orders come down from command, another sortie, this time deeper into the industrial heart of Germany, targets set on synthetic oil plants critical to the Nazi war machine, a complex web of infrastructure that requires precise navigation over heavily defended territory, often in the face of unpredictable weather that turns bomb runs into nightmarish exercises in aerodynamics and human endurance. Carver climbs aboard the lead B-17 again, noting the improvements made during quick repairs, a replaced stabilizer, patched fuselage, lubricated guns, small miracles of engineering that make the difference between returning home in one piece or being consigned to the icy waters of the North Sea. The engines roar to life, vibrating through the fuselage, the metallic scent of fuel burning mixing with adrenaline as formation members line up in staggered positions, wingtip to wingtip, precisely calculated to maximize defensive fire arcs while minimizing collision risk, a choreography perfected under fire. Rising to 23,000 feet, clouds whip past the cockpit windows, and for a fleeting moment, the world below seems almost serene, rivers like silver ribbons and towns tiny, fragile, innocent, unaware of the destructive force above them. Yet serenity is a veneer. Flak bursts erupt in violent orange puffs, anti-aircraft fire tracing deadly arcs, shrapnel shearing through aluminum and human flesh alike. Carver's co-pilot yells over the roar, "Essen approaching. Fighters inbound." The first wave of Mi-109s dives, engines screaming, cannons spitting fire as the fortress formation tightens, defensive fire raining from every turret. Tail, chin, dorsal, ball turret, tracers crisscross the sky in a deadly lattice of steel and fire, German pilots attempting head-on attacks only to find their aircraft riddled before reaching the bombers. The Norden bombsight clicks and hums, its gyroscope maintaining precise stabilization, compensating for wind, altitude, and airspeed as the bombardier aligns the crosshairs with the target refinery below, calculations made in seconds that determine not just mission success but countless lives, both civilian and military. Explosions bloom across the target, flames licking skyward, smoke billowing, the sound reaching the formation in a delayed roar, a muted reminder of human impact filtered through hundreds of feet of cold air and steel. Carver watches the chaos below, logging every maneuver, flak hit, and evasive turn, the adrenaline heightening awareness of every vibration in the controls, every fluctuation in engine sound, every subtle movement of the aircraft that could indicate incoming damage. One engine fails mid-run, oil streaming across the cowling, but the B-17, true to its nickname for endurance, continues, the remaining 3 engines compensating, the crew adjusting propeller pitch and throttle with practiced precision. German laughter, once derisive, now seems distant, replaced by a grim understanding that the American bombers are no fragile targets. Their ability to absorb punishment and maintain formation throws the Luftwaffe into disarray, forcing tactics to evolve under duress. Mid-air, Carver notices a fellow aircraft struggling, wingtip flaming, radios burst with urgent calls, straggler, straggler. Cover them. Formation shifts, men responding instinctively to the cohesion drilled into them over months of sorties. Tracers whistle past the canopy, close enough to rattle instruments and morale alike, yet the B-17s, through crew skill and engineering, turn lethal defensive fire back on their attackers, forcing them to peel away, battered and beaten. The psychological impact on German pilots begins to mirror the physical, initial scorn replaced by terror at the bomber's resilience, as the once mocked, flying Coffin becomes a fortress of death from above, with overlapping fields of fire and armor plating that absorbs hits that would fell lighter aircraft. As bombs are dropped, the aftermath below is a landscape of fire and ruin, but above, the sky is a calculus of survival, a constant negotiation with wind, flak, fuel, and enemy aggression. Carver glances at the flight engineer monitoring fuel ratios, engine temperatures, and hydraulic pressures, every gauge a potential life or death indicator, and marvels at the human-machine symbiosis required to maintain altitude and formation under stress that erodes both body and mind. The return journey begins, engines throttled to conserve fuel but still trembling with vibration, the crew fatigued, emotionally drained, yet hardened by experience and bound by unspoken loyalty. Over the North Sea, reconnaissance reports of damaged Luftwaffe units arrive on the radio, small victories that hint at the shifting tide of air superiority, yet each man knows the next mission could demand everything again. Carver, finally able to exhale, writes in his log the details of the sortie, flak hits, fighter engagements, bomber formation integrity, but beneath the meticulous notes lies the unrecorded truth, the fear, courage, and camaraderie that define every mission. Landing is a careful dance. The fortress, heavy with battle damage, responds sluggishly to controls, but pilot skill, coupled with resilient design, sees them safely back on English soil. Ground crews swarm to repair, debriefs begin, and Carver finds a quiet corner, staring at the sky that once mocked them, now tamed by American ingenuity and sacrifice. He allows himself a grim smile, recalling the German derogatory nickname, realizing that the flying Coffin is now synonymous with endurance, firepower, and psychological domination, a name transformed by experience, sweat, and steel. And yet, as he watches the frost creeping across the wings, the burnt smell of engine oil lingering in the air, he knows this is only a pause, a moment of fragile calm before the storm of missions yet to come, each demanding the same nerve, the same precision, the same courage, as the battle for the skies of Europe rages on. The weeks that follow are a crucible, each sortie forging crews harder, their nerves stretched taut against the roar of engines, the whistle of flak, and the screams of steel meeting flesh. Carver and his squadron press deeper into the heart of Germany, every mission layered with technical precision, altitude adjusted to optimize Norden bombsight accuracy, formation boxes tightened to maximize overlapping defensive fire, fuel calculations balanced against payload and wind drift, each gunner scanning the skies for the telltale silhouette of a Messerschmitt or Focke-Wulf slicing toward them with deadly intent. German pilots, once derisive and overconfident, adapt tactics, attempting head-on attacks, pincer movements, and night interceptions, yet the B-17s, through a combination of armored resilience, heavy defensive armament, and disciplined formation flying, repeatedly turn the tide, absorbing punishment that would destroy lesser aircraft. Carver witnesses moments that sear themselves into memory, a co-pilot shielding a straggling bomber with calculated maneuvers, mid-upper gunners firing until their hands blister, entire crews improvising on the fly as engines fail, hydraulic lines rupture, and oxygen masks freeze in sub-zero altitudes. Each crew member becomes a specialist, their roles overlapping in deadly choreography, tail gunners covering vulnerable engines, radio men relaying flak coordinates, navigators adjusting headings to avoid known concentrations, and bombardiers maintaining focus as the ground target swells from map coordinates into a living, infernal cityscape. After one particularly harrowing mission over the synthetic oil plants of Leipzig, Carver's formation limps home, some planes missing engines, one entire bomber lost to the icy waters of the Elbe, yet every surviving crew is more than a collection of men, they are a machine of endurance, a testament to human resilience married to engineering excellence. The Germans, forced to reevaluate their assumptions, finally recognize that the American, flying Coffin, is neither fragile nor foolish, it is a flying fortress, a symbol of relentless strategic bombing capability that will dominate the skies through the final years of the war. Carver stands once again on the English tarmac, frost cracking beneath his boots, the morning sun glinting off battered wings, smoke curling faintly from repaired engines. Around him, crews laugh quietly, exchange weary congratulations, and silently honor the fallen, each man knowing the sky has become a proving ground not just for machines, but for the courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice of those who dare to conquer it. He writes the final lines in his log, not just numbers and coordinates, but the truth of what they have endured. That courage, precision, and unwavering resolve transformed the B-17 from a term of ridicule into a legend of the air war. And as the camera pans upward, following the shadows of these massive, four-engine fortresses carving paths through a steel-gray sky, the voiceover closes, somber yet resolute, they laughed at America's flying Coffin, dismissed it as fragile and doomed. Yet through the fires of flak, the hail of enemy fighters, and the endless horizon of war, it rose, undaunted, dominating the skies, a testament to human courage and the relentless machinery of victory. The wind carries the echo of engines, a metallic roar that becomes both lullaby and warning, as Lieutenant Robert Carver and his men march toward the next mission, knowing that while death shadows every flight, the legacy of resilience, ingenuity, and defiance will endure long after the smoke clears from Europe's battle-scarred skies.